microphone right down to your, so it's comfortable.
Just go whenever.
Yes.
Hello. The day my father died, I was left confused and still am to this day. Seeing my father in a casket really hurt me to see him like that. Without him and my family at the house, it's like a ghost town looking for that time back with them. I can't help to relive memories and get sad because one, they aren't there to enjoy the memory with, and second, I just miss them so much. Times are difficult at home without the people you had there to not be there anymore. It's been getting harder for me to even be at the house and enjoy it, let alone live in it and call it my home. Especially when the house itself practically left itself. I really didn't express myself back in the day or talk about the problems I had with people normally, but having my family around was what got me through my days. My dad's smart-ass humor had really got me through my days and troubles. Through him, I learned to try not to take things so serious and or heavy, because at least for this time I've had without my family, it only gets worse unless you make it better. I've had to go through a lot of changes to be where I am at today in life. Some good, some bad, but all just taught me to go through it. Worst part about it is that it felt like no one was there to help through all this before or after, even though there were and probably were more people. But I can't blame them because they're probably just going through the same in their own way. Throughout the years, my mom as a woman did try her best to do her role as a mom while dealing with life itself. She tried being there for those who tried being there for her. She loves her family and friends very deeply, and to me seems the reason why things led to how we sit today. From what I've seen, she loved my father deeply, which kind of explains the constant fights and such about the affair. I miss my father every day alongside with pops and moms. They are the ones who raised me, made and brought me to the world that we are here in today. My father, even though he was hurting, he still had a big heart. Even though he was a big drinker up to sobriety, he still tried to enjoy time with us and bring us to places where some dads with the same struggle don't bring their kids at all and or can't. Him being a firefighter and veteran brought some cool and good relationships to our lives. But every family has their problems, and obviously my family did as well. I think that drinking helped him with coping with life before he found another way to help him things through sobriety. For my mom and father at the same time, I can't thank them enough for meeting each other and sticking it out through the thick and thin, trying to fix things for themselves and their family. I try not to stress out my mom or the man, my father, Michael Sr., even though I stressed out my mom and the man. I can't say enough how much I love them, and it hurts not being able to see them together again like back at home. My father and mom had some really good times together, and that's just from me seeing and being there. The only other things were going left is when I would say she would be concerned about his drinking or whereabouts. They both struggled, and sometimes I don't think they realized it would affect us or not. From my view, every day people were hurt, even if it was a little bit, but they were still worried, pain, and tiredness from the fights. To a point, everybody was trying to leave. I don't want my mom rotting away in prison. In fact, I don't want her sitting in there at all because that's my mom. But she did take my person who I call my father/dad for all my life away from me. To be honest, I couldn't even give you a proper sentencing number because it hurt so much not having either of them. So all I ask in the end is not for her to sit there for life. I'd like to see her out in the world again one day, hopefully the same person but a recovered one. What I really would like for her to get is to do something with her life instead of prison for life. I would ask for the minimum sentence because she's a good person that struggles but tries to do better than and or fix the problems everyone had. After all, when I was little, she had to help us when we messed up, and all is that I can hope to be there when or if she gets out. Growing up, I thought I'd be the first one sentenced, and it hurts seeing my mom going through this on top of everything else, including losing her husband / my father. I love my family, I love my mom, and I love my dad. Thank you.
The next statement will be Michael Ricci, Jr.
I just want to start off by saying thank you to the court, the jurors, and to you, Your Honor, for discovering the truth of my father's passing. I'm eternally grateful and appreciative for everyone's involvement in finding the truth and for allowing the truth to have its day. I've been trying to write this impact statement over the last couple days, and I've written about 5 different variations of it, each one longer than the last, but no words on a page can surmise or even begin to describe the amount of anger, pain, confusion, and hurt I've been carrying with me since my father's death. This whole situation has sucked. I never thought to imagine that I would have to be testifying on behalf of my father's death, and at the other end of it would be the person I used to call my mom. As I mentioned in my testimony, my dad was still my hero. He's perhaps the most important person in my life. He's the person I looked up to and tried to live my life the way he did. He's an Army veteran, so I wanted to join the military because of him. And as a kid, I would spend the nights with him at the firehouse, so naturally I wanted to join the Boston Fire Department. He was that constant example for me to live my life selflessly, putting others before myself, and to be that helping hand for anyone, and to enjoy the time that I had left, and to make the most of it. But we also had a very personal relationship as a father and son. We would stay up late together watching TV shows from his childhood, listen to music and go to concerts together, and he would tell me stories from when he was a kid into his adulthood, life advice that he would tell me to prepare me going into the real world. He was that guy I could always trust and always count on with my life, if life was kicking me to the ground. I never thought that having such a special relationship with him meant that I now have to live in a world without him. Having to retell this experience that I went through, the open wounds of pain and anguish over the course of 3 years since my dad was gone, it's been tough. Reliving that night he died, that I was the first family member at the hospital, that I was the first person to know that he died. I can still feel to this day the emotions that I was going through when the hospital staff told me. I couldn't believe what they said. I was just in complete shock. It really felt like someone tore open my heart and there was an emptiness in my body that just made me feel numb. But I knew I had to break the news to everybody else, which I did through disbelief. And I immediately, from that point on, had to undertake the responsibility for what was to come. I had to plan out his wake and funeral. I had to decide where he was to be buried, what clothes he would be wearing, the casket he would be put to rest in, what was going to be written on his gravestone. I was even with him transporting his body back from Boston Medical to Marshfield with the help of the Boston Fire Department. All the while communicating with DCF to decide where my sister will live and who was to be taking care of her. And I'm thinking to myself, no kid should have to go through anything like this. I'm angry that my fear, the nightmare that would keep me up at 2 a.m, is a reality I now have to live through of what could have happened if I wasn't there the day I left in 2019. Living through all this, understanding what I was doing and how personal every decision I made gave me a realization, a different kind of pain, a different kind of hurt that no one else, a different kind of pain, a different kind of hurt than anyone else that I am both honored and heartbroken to be carrying with me. However, that feeling of having to go through all that wasn't the difficult part. It was how I saw everyone else that made me feel horrible. The amount of people I saw completely broken, faces covered in tears and sorrow, an endless amount of support who I saw all hurting, friends and families suffering in grief and anger, and that I hugged and consoled, all looking at me as a source of strength, the guy who held back his emotions to fight through this horrific storm.